In this video, I'm going to show you how to get so good at chess it feels illegal. Now, in this game, I open 1d4 and my opponent goes knight f6. Now, my goal with this video right here is to walk you through step by step through this game and show you how a top 1% online chess player approaches the game, their plans, their ideas, and how I improve week after week, game after game, and apply the lessons that I'm learning. All right, in this game, I continue c4. That is my main repertoire as white. I love to go d4 and c4 these days. Now, my opponent here goes c5, heading for some sort of Benini structure. I go d5, and now which one will it be for black? Well, in the game, black goes b5, heading for the notorious Benko Gambit. Now, here I take on b5, c takes b5, and black goes a6. Now, here I'm trying to find a good line that I like in the Benko Gambit. Now, real fast, what is black's idea? Well, black here, obviously, is giving up 2 pawns on the queen side. If I want to, I can capture it here. Obviously, black will recapture on a6 with the bishop or the knight at some point. And from there, I'm going to be up 1 pawn, but in return, black gets very good compensation on the queen side. Now, I've been trying to find a good line against the Benko that I like, that I feel comfortable with. And in the future, I think I will go for this line right here, but instead, in this game, I went for the other main idea for white, and that is simply e3. Now, what is the idea behind this move? It's simple. You are defending b5 with the bishop. If black takes here, I take back, and my bishop is activated and on a very good square. But overall, the pawn being on e3 is certainly not as active as, say, having the pawn on e4, and it does trap this bishop here on c1 temporarily. But on the other hand, this pawn here being very modest, it means it's going to be harder for black to attack my position, so I do have a more compact, safe structure here. All right, in the game, black takes on b5, a takes, I recapture, bishop takes, and black goes bishop to a6. Now here I capture the bishop, bishop takes, black goes queen to a5, hitting my king. Of course, I am going to lose this bishop. There's no way to defend it and block the attack on the king. I go knight c3, and here black takes the bishop, queen takes. Now, overall, I had a rough idea here that this was not the ideal plan from black, and it turns out I am substantially better here, but I didn't really understand it in the game. I just had a hunch that I might be a little bit better here. I didn't realize it was all the way up to 1.5 pawns here. But anyway, how should I proceed here? At this point, I was out of theory. I had forgotten the rest of my plans here from this position, and I've got to find some way to castle my king on the king side. But what's it going to be? Obviously, with the queen on a6 guarding this diagonal, castling king side after, say, knight f3 would be very difficult. If I went knight f3 and black goes, say, g6, then here I can't castle as the king would be under check by the queen. So what am I going to do? Well, I do have quite a bit of experience in same-ish style pawn structures after, say, f3 and e4 against, say, the King's Indian, the modern Benini, the Grunfeld, and so on. And very often in those structures, you just go knight gd2. And I thought, you know what? That's actually a pretty good placement for the knight here. And from here, white has a few main ideas. I might go e4, gaining space. I might also go, say, knight g3, intending perhaps knight f5 or h5 or so on, or even h4, h5 ideas. So for some reason, my intuition just told me having this knight on the e2 square just seemed like a good idea, and it turns out it certainly was in the game. Now here, black goes d6, I castle, and black goes g6. That is black's main idea in the Benko Gambit, especially at the amateur level. Black almost always likes to fianchetto this bishop, trying to get pressure on this diagonal and later on these open files as well. So that is where black's getting his compensation from. But of course, I'm doing quite well here. I continue. e4, knight bd7, and then bishop e3. My idea here, I want to basically go for a setup with queen d2 and bishop e3, and then pressure on this diagonal and potentially trade off black's very important dark squared bishop. If he loses that bishop, his king side is going to be incredibly vulnerable, so that had to be good for me. Now here, black goes bishop g7, and it turns out in this position, queen d2 right away is not the best idea, as then black can go knight to g4, pressuring the bishop, and I sort of lose control of this battery here. Now, if I wanted to do that, I could go h3 first. That would be one idea. You can also go, say, a4 and queen c2, playing on the queen side. That's also fine. But in the game, I did go queen d2, a little bit of an inaccuracy, and black here, he did punish me right away, so kudos to him. Knight g4 pressures the bishop. Of course, the idea is if I go bishop h6, then I lose the bishop. I can't do that. It is being guarded twice by this knight and this bishop. Therefore, that's not an option. So, in the game, bishop g5, black goes h6, I go bishop h4, then we have g5 and bishop g3. Now, I was not too upset overall to see this. I know from experience, when black goes, for example, h6 and g5, his kingside pawns become quite vulnerable, and I can later go either h4 or f4, pressuring the kingside, and I'm going to have a lot of pressure against black's kingside pawns. So black here, he castles, and it turns out here, the best idea for white is just the immediate f4 advance. Now, I sort of knew the idea, but I got things mixed up just a little bit. Here, before doing f4, I did go h3, driving back the knight. Then we have knight gd5. And then finally, I did go f4, gaining space on the king side, and again, trying to drive back that knight. And my idea was, if black takes here, say g takes, I'll take back with the bishop, perhaps. And from there, I have quite a bit of pressure on the king side, and black here seems to be in quite a bit of trouble. So this was my main idea. And beyond that, the open f-file also very, very good for white. Now, black, he knew this, and he did not trade on f4. It's a very good idea by black. Instead, knight to c4 is the idea. So a good move, pressuring b2 a little bit, and black overall has quite a bit of pressure on, you know, these open files and diagonals. Now here, I go back, queen c1. My goal here, I'm trying to get the queen on this diagonal where it's still pressuring these pawns a little bit. That way, if black takes here, I take back with the bishop, and my bishop on f4 is pressuring the pawn on the h6 square. Now, black knows this, and he actually goes g4 here. Now, this move g4 is very, very committal. Black's idea, he's trying to block this diagonal, and in doing so, he's actually giving up a pawn. And I said, you know what? It's a free pawn. Let's take it. And then black goes rook f to b8. Now, black here is getting essentially everything he wants. At this point, alarm bells were going off in my head. Black has the two rooks slicing down the board plus the queen. His knight's pressuring b2. His bishop is pressuring this diagonal. I mean, this is just a walking, what's the word for it? The board is just booby-trapped. I mean, one small mistake here by white, and I'm going to get blown off the board. And I knew that, I saw that, and I played the best move here. That is simply the move b3. The point being, b2 was under attack. I go b3, driving back this knight, and yes, this diagonal is a little bit weaker, but for now, it's okay, especially with this very good knight on the e2 square supporting this knight. So overall, I'm doing just fine. Now, it turns out here, the best move for black is going to be knight to a3, but instead, in the game, black goes knight c to b6, dropping back. Now, when I saw this, I just figured, wait a minute, I have the two extra pawns now and this giant massive pawns on the king side. This has to be good for me. If this is not good for me right now, then what is, right? So what should I be doing right here? Well, the computer, as usual, gives some combinations that don't even look possible. The best line here, according to the engine, and I'm not even kidding when I say this, is you want to go e5, black takes your pawn, and then you go g5. Don't ask me why. I truly don't understand the idea behind this move here. I mean, I'm sure I could study it and figure it out, but I'm not even going to bother with that. There's no lesson to be learned. That is just crazy computer stuff way beyond my skill level, right? So in the game, I go queen d2. Not a bad move. The idea being I'm trying to connect the rooks, get the queen off the back rank, and so on. Not a bad move at all. And also, I am defending the pawn on the a2 square. Now, black here plays actually quite a good move. c4. Black here, he knows he has to get counterplay on the queen side ASAP as soon as possible. And black here has a few threats. First of all, he's freed up the square c5 for his knight. Black is fighting back. And beyond that, black's also threatening c takes b3. At which point, if I recapture, black can trade his one queen for the two rooks. And now I have some very strong opinions on that, as we're going to see later in the game. You don't want to miss that. Some very good advice. So here, I go knight d4, jumping up. Black trades his precious dark squared bishop. My precious bishop takes d4. I'm not a huge fan of the idea behind that move, but anyways, black plays it, giving up his precious. Now queen takes d4, and now here black goes for the move. C takes b3. Now, personally, this is just my personal opinion. Whenever I trade my queen for two of black's rooks, I lose the game. And whenever black trades his queen for two of my rooks, I win the game. Now, technically, the rooks are supposed to be stronger than the queen, but for some reason, that never, ever, ever works out in my games. My theory for that is even if the computer shows the absolute perfect way to play with the two rooks, I think it's just easier in a practical game between two humans to just jump around with the queen and threaten things and threaten checks and threaten loose pieces. I think the margin for error is just so much higher with the queen that even if theoretically the two rooks are stronger, I just find the queen is just so much easier to play with and you just win more games. So here, I play the move A takes B3. I'm giving that 2 exclamation points for the idea behind the move. I'm willingly giving up my two rooks if black wants it for the queen. And black here, he dives in and takes it. Queen takes, rook takes, hitting my king and king to h2. Now, when I saw this on the board, I just knew I was about to win this game because in my experience, again, coordinating these two rooks against the queen is just borderline impossible. And as we're going to see in this game, that is effectively what happens here. All right. Knight f6. I go bishop h4, pressuring the knight. It turns out that wasn't the right idea. It turns out the right idea here, I don't know, knight d1. That is the computer move here. But anyway, bishop to h4 played in the game. Then we have here knight takes g4. This was a little bit of a mistake. I go king g3, a good move, getting my king off the vulnerable h2 square here, obviously under check. Hit the knight. Black goes h5, defending the knight. And then bishop takes e7, simply winning a pawn. And now, with that pawn falling, this pawn is going to fall sooner or later as well. Black goes knight d7. Here I go b4, defending the pawn on the b3 square. Now on b4, black goes rook a3. Now I take on d6. Bishop takes. Black goes rook c8. And then bishop c5. And here, look at this. What are these two rooks actually accomplishing? Yes, this knight is pinned to the king, but I just gobbled up a bunch of pawns. Black takes on c5. I take back. No problem. No worries there. Black goes rook b8, trying to get something going, but it's too little too late. King to h4. My king, believe it or not, is going to the g5 square, and from there, it's going to be completely safe. Black goes king h7. Now here, technically, I could take on h5, but here I know in the endgame, this is more or less an endgame now, the most important thing is just pushing your passed pawns. So I ignore everything else in the position, and I just go d6. King g6, defending h5, and now d7. And now black has to defend. If he ignores the threat, I'm getting a new queen, and he's going to have to sacrifice his rook for the new queen. So black here, rook a to a8, trying to defend the best he can, but now c6. I'm threatening c7, and at that point, one of these pawns, if not both, are going to promote, whether white likes it or not. So black, rook to a1, trying to potentially threaten the king here, but now, the last move of the game, queen d6, showing why I personally cannot stand playing with the two rooks against the queen. The queen here, it is just so easy to fork different pieces and gobble them up. I just love playing with the queen. The two rooks, I'm not a fan. But anyway, very interesting game here. The real fun of this game started around move 9 here, going for this plan with knight g to e2, and from there, I have to formulate some sort of plan. My idea was knight g to e2, then e4, castles, bishop e3, queen d2, and so on. So, you know, to be a top 1% chess player, one of the biggest things you have to be able to do is generate basically simple plans like this on the fly in new positions. It's so important to be able to do that. And beyond that, you also want to use all your experience from your prior games. For example, I play a lot of games in same-ish style pawn structure with the pawns on f3 and e4. And from that, I knew having the knight on e2 is actually not that bad in these kinds of positions. So I'm using my past experience in very similar positions and games to apply that to here to find a really simple but effective plan. And as we saw in the game, it worked out really, really well here. Queen d2 was a little bit of a mistake, but beyond that, I just keep going, drawing back the knight, pressure with f4 and so on, and suddenly I'm getting quite a good attack on the king side. And from there, it's just kind of an all-out fight between me and him, and in the end, I was able to defend on the queen side while attacking, and it was just too much for my opponent and so on. So anyways, I hope you found this game helpful, and I really do hope it shows you how to get so good at chess it feels illegal. And by the way, if you want to learn directly from me, I do have a free chess community where I give away all of my secrets, everything I know about becoming a top 1% online chess player, including all of the opening and middle game strategies I use as white and as black. So if you want to learn directly from me, get all of my secrets, get all of my pre-made custom plans for different openings, join my free community. The link is down below in the description for this video, so check it out. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.